What's up guys, it's Lord Botha here with another video, and Squid Game Season 2 has come and gone. It was definitely a show that divided fans when it came to reception. As for my personal review, I thought the show was actually pretty good. I enjoyed this season. Was it as good as the first season? I wouldn't say that. The plot was kind of messy at certain points and all over the place. The season started out more like a spy thriller than an actual, Squid Game season. I think people were expecting to dive more into the actual Squid Game games and participation earlier than it's, say, 1/3 of the way through the season. I liked it though because I'm into the whole action spy thriller, especially in Asian cities. But it was definitely not an element of the series that was loved. I also thought that there were certain over-the-top comic elements of the show. There's three or four characters in the show that exist almost purely for comic relief. And you have to question, is that really necessary? All the characters, too, involved in Squid Game this season, they feel a little one-dimensional. There's not that much to them. Though, to be honest, because they only come in about a third of the way through the season, we don't have the full season of actually participating in the Squid Games to really get to know these characters. And because we switched to the focus on them so strongly in the second half or 2/3 of the season, the characters were introduced at the first third of the season. Well, we don't get to learn a lot about them in depthly. So all the characters seem a little shallow. Which leads me to the next problem, and probably one of the causes of that. This season was very short, 7 episodes. The first season of Squid Game was 9 episodes. And 7 episodes, when you spend the first 2 or 3 episodes not actually involved in the actual Squid Games, people are going to be a little tiffed about that, yeah. And yes, that's going to harm some level of character development. It definitely feels like they had season 2 that could have been done in 11 or 12 episodes, but they didn't really know what they were going to do for season 3, and they felt oh, that's too long, and we kind of want a season 3, so what if we make season 2 shorter, end it on a relatively weird cliffhanger, and then we finish with season 3 that could have been part of season 2. Because where the show does end in season 2, it feels like an episode cliffhanger more than an actual season cliffhanger, if that makes any kind of sense. You expect it to be the kind of thing that gets resolved or some kind of resolution next episode, not to wait for a whole next season. Though to be fair, we won't have that long to wait for next season, as next season is coming in 2025, later this year. So they're banging these last 2 seasons out right away. And apparently season 3 is supposed to be the last season of Squid Game. I can't remember, but I almost get the feeling there were 2 endings that were filmed for Squid Game. One that was more definitive and one that was more of a cliffhanger that could have led into another season. And they decided to go with that ending, and they decided to give us more seasons. And the creator of the show, who I know this is a passion project of his, he tried really hard to get this thing through for a really long time. I hear that he's burnt out. He doesn't want to do anything else for a good long while. I get the strong feeling that he has the same problem as, say, Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix in The Joker 2, where they didn't want to actually make the sequel, but they got offered a ton of cash, and they just said, yeah, sure, let's do it. Especially because I don't think the creator of Squid Game actually made that much from the first season, so yeah, he's going to want to get his money. Overall, I did like season 2 of Squid Game. I thought it built very well off of season 1. I think it's one of those cases where if you watch season 1 and then you go straight into season 2, it probably flows better as well. It's more of a cohesive idea. You see the point of it more. I do think some of the witty banter and jokes that they put into the show with all the comic relief characters does land occasionally, although sometimes it's just hokey and kind of cringe. And while we don't get a lot of in-depth development for some of these characters, the show does still do a good job of making you actually feel and care about them, root for and against them. And yes, while the show does have a trans character in it, they do a very good job of making that trans character very relatable and human. They don't make that character super preachy. And yes, while there is a fear that they would essentially have plot armor and be very good at pretty much everything, the show does a very good job of explaining why that character is good at a lot of stuff. But overall, like I said, pretty good show. As you can see here on Rotten Tomatoes, critics gave season 2 an 83%, audience gave it a 64%, whereas with season 1 you see the critics gave it a 95% and the audience have it at a 83%. So a considerable drop in favorability with the audience scores from season 1 to season 2, but still a net positive. Also, there's no denying that despite all the reviews and rumors that are already out there, this show broke a ton of records and got people to tune into Netflix. This comes to us from Screen Rant. Every viewership record Squid Game Season 2 has broken so far. We won't go through every one of them, but I will highlight this. Squid Game Season 2 garnered 68 million views in the first 3 days on Netflix. Wednesday previously held the record for most views for a series in its debut week with 51.1 million views, a record that Squid Game surpassed in a matter of a few days. Wednesday is Netflix's all-time most watched English show with 252 million views. Squid Game remains the most watched non-English show in addition to being Netflix's most watched show overall, with 265.2 million views in the first 91 days. So whatever you think of my review or anyone's review or the Rotten Tomato critics or the audience reviews on Rotten Tomatoes as well, the fact remains that this show is driving in eyeballs. People are watching it. Now again, there's always questions as what does Netflix really count as a view? They're not really very specific on it, right? Just like any streaming service is. Whether or not somebody watched it for a minute or accidentally clicked on it for a second, or whether they watched the whole damn season. But the point is, there's no denying that somewhere in there, that's enough minutes that you can say a lot of people watch this thing. And I think that the people running the show were actually smart the way they did it, breaking up the 2 seasons like this into a season 2 and season 3, when they probably could have just done a long season 2 and called it good, because now they give themselves room to breathe in season 3 and actually end things properly. And by ending it on a cliffhanger that they did, they're actually going to get people that are already invested, even if they didn't like exactly how the second season turned out, but they watched it, they're already invested, and it ended on a cliffhanger. If they make it come out very fast in 2025, people are still going to be invested enough. They're going to watch season 3 just to see how the show ends. That's a fairly smart strategy from them. But those are all my thoughts on all this. If you have your own thoughts, go ahead and leave them in the comments. If you like this video, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like this video, I appreciate you watching all of it, and we'll talk to you again later.